Everybody, welcome back to the Insiders Lounge. Today we have another special guest. Omar, thank you for joining me, and feel free to introduce yourself.
My name is Omar Adlani. I'm from Vancouver. Was born in Algeria. Moved to Vancouver at a quite young age. Started at the university in Vancouver, University of Windsor first, and then Vancouver, and then after that, continued to play. Moved to Germany to play for a bit, then moved to Finland to continue my playing career. Then after that, coaching just took over and started coaching. And then after that, just got obsessed with it, and here I am.
And I always like starting off with the earliest footballing memories. What were some of those early memories you had growing up?
Oh God. Honestly, I was never interested in football, to be honest with you. I had three uncles who played, and my dad who played as well. So I was around stadiums all the time as a child. My earliest memory, would be probably, I remember this quite vividly. I was at a game, big stadium, packed stadium. The stadium had a track around it, and I was playing in that long jump sand pit.
Yeah.
With like toy cars, and I just remember being really annoyed that it was so loud all the time, and I just couldn't get like my focus on these toys and just playing in that sand pit. So that was my earliest memory. And then I remember that, and then I was interested in other things. Never football growing up, so mostly moving to Canada, then hockey took over. Like, oh, what is this sport? Hockey, basketball, track, and then finally later on started being a bit more obsessed with football when getting into elementary school and high school, and all my friends were playing it. They all had their teams. So I'm like, okay, I'll join football.
And then you had a unique childhood sort of growing up. You mentioned earlier you were born in Algeria, moved to Canada, then your professional career ended up taking you to Germany, and then your coaching career all over Europe now. Can you talk a little bit about your childhood growing up from moving from Algeria and kind of your early stages in Canada?
Born in Algeria, then we moved to Montreal first, 1996 or 97, I don't remember, but it's whenever the worst winter ever recorded was. I think it was 96 in Montreal or something like that. So going from plus 40 weather to minus 50 it was just madness for us. We didn't know how to handle that. I remember my dad was driving in a small like Mitsubishi with no snow tires, and he had no idea you had to change the snow tires, so our car was sliding everywhere. It was just out of a comedy movie. But it was and then after we moved to Vancouver right away next summer, as soon as the snow melted, we left, went to Vancouver. That was a bit of a struggle for us because we had to learn English. English was really difficult. We spoke French, we spoke Arabic, but English was completely new. So I was like learning English with my parents at the same time, same books and everything like that. So I used to stutter a lot because I was combining three languages. So that was a real struggle. Reading in front of class all the time, I would always just look and like, okay, this guy's reading this line. I'm going to probably read this line, and I would just practice it. So I always joke that I could never be a head coach if I still had that stutter. So as I got older, the stutter left. And then, grew up in Vancouver, which is one of the most multicultural cities. So I was very, very lucky to grow up there. And then they gave me such an open mind about the world. So I really took that with me.
And then moving into, I always like to see the educational background of our guests, and then also how they use that knowledge that they grew from whether it's university, college, whatever you have as a background, how you actually use that today and use that in your day-to-day work.
Yeah, I mean, first, of course, it's the education that you're speaking about, school. School education, I had more of a full kind of education from my parents. We moved from Canada, didn't speak the language that well. Then they had to work and suffer through a lot of different jobs, working 2-3 jobs a day, no complaining, very high work ethic. So that really what is stuck with me the whole time and that's something that has shaped my career till this day. So those are the two values that I speak about in my team. a lot is family and work ethic. So the players can come in as teammates, but they need to leave as a family. That's something I always have in my mind. It's who I am. And if I fail with those, then I'm completely happy failing with that because it's who I am. So, I would say also growing up in Vancouver, other kids and families, I don't know if you know Vancouver very well, but it's a pretty wealthy
Mhm.
area. So other kids' families had more, I would say, more than us, but, I'm sure my parents, uh, probably sometimes don't like how I was raised, but I'm for sure know that they love what they raised. So that's something that's also stuck with me as I take great pride. If you look at our team, we don't have the most resources, we don't have the best finances, we don't have, but I'm really proud of what we have been able to accomplish with very, very, very small things. So that's something that I take with me a lot. So that's the first part. And then, if you're talking about educational background, I hated school. I was good at it, but I hated it because I was never interested in it. I started University of Windsor, did 1 year there. I loved the people. I was just the city. I couldn't handle it. Very small town, small university town. I love the people. I love being there. Then of course, in your first year of university, you take a lot of courses. You try different things. I took philosophy. That didn't really plan out because I needed answers. I couldn't just, I needed
Yeah.
answers. I took environmental science, didn't like it so much. Then I took kinesiology and then finally settled with human kinetics. Then went back to Vancouver, following year, enrolled at Adlani University, played football there. And then as I finished university, I moved straight to Germany. And then during that time in university, I'm sure many people do it. Me, myself, I did a lot of things. I did a personal training, certificate, sports taping, first aid, just random things. I don't know why I did them. I was never interested in the actual school part, but like the fact that I could choose these different things that I wanted to learn, I could just go and do. And then I just, yeah, went and did them. And I'm that type of student who just let everything in the final days, did all my projects in the final days, ended up finishing them. But when I'm interested in something, then I'm 100% fully. And this is, that's why with my courses, with my licenses, my coaching badges, I ended up doing them in pretty much 5, 6 years from the D course all the way to the UEFA Pro, which is not really, you can't really do it in that short amount of time. You need to space them out a little bit, but I was quite lucky to be able to do them in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think you had a few great points there. With the first one, I have a similar background. My parents came from South Africa to Canada, and I think you sort of have a different perspective on life looking at your parents growing up. Like when my dad first moved over, he was laying wires for Bell, like for one of the telephone services, and you see that growing up, and I think you get a different picture on the way things work, and I think it makes you more appreciative of what real work ethic is like. But I think that carries on throughout your life, and I'm super grateful for it today. And then I think with that second point you mentioned, I think a lot of those skills you learned, whether it was in Windsor, in Vancouver, or even in Germany, I think if you look at all of that you learned then, super translates to what you're doing now in the club environment, where you can see the different people working around you and have at least a basic knowledge of what they've been able to achieve to get to that position, and then you're able to conversate with them and understand what they're working on. And I think in terms of having a family environment, that's super key, of knowing, okay, this staff member is really good at doing this, so it's good that I have a base knowledge and I can speak to everyone and kind of get that understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, like I said earlier, with the multicultural, like you can grow up in Vancouver, you're around so many different cultures that when you move around, it's very easy. You have to adapt to that culture where you're going. You can't just, be who you are. I can't be this, Canadian, blah, 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 blah person. I have to adapt to their culture. I have to, uh, how do they speak? How do they like to be spoken to? Things like that. So I had to learn that, as well. going forward. And yeah, and I wish, with all the schooling and everything, I wasn't interested then, but now as I get older, I wish I was, because now I'm more interested in the boring stuff. Like, I don't know, yesterday I watched 4 YouTube videos on like energy density physics, I don't know what it was. I just watched it and I tried to learn it. And then next day I watched some guy building a snow shelter with like, just like random stuff. Yeah, I wish school came maybe later in life, for people than at a young age. At a young age, you're just kind of, your head's a little bit, and it's not for everybody.
The one thing I wanted to cover just before we get into what your current work status is actually getting into the football industry. So you had a bit of a playing career, and then you transitioned out into, I think it was sales, right? You were in sales for a little bit, and then you moved into
Yeah.
the coaching side of things. Can you talk about those transitions? Because I think a lot of people that listen to the podcast might be in a position where they're working outside of football, but they're trying to get in, or they're trying to work their way up in terms of the footballing pyramid. So I think giving that sort of idea of how you transition through those stages is fascinating to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. That's basically what it is. I don't have, it's not, there's no pattern to how I went about things, or, I worked at New Balance, I worked at Adidas. I learned so much there just from, my boss was the youngest owner at the time in New Balance. So he was learning how to manage. We are still friends to this day. And, I saw his work ethic also from being such a young guy. And, that stuck with me. I ran track. I had, so all those things kind of shaped me. And then I had fantastic coaches, and I also had really bad coaches at the same time. But I don't, as I get older, I don't blame the bad coaches, because, it's, as we don't know what they were going through. Their educational backgrounds, are they part-time? Are they just doing voluntarily? I didn't know that back then. I just went home like, I hate this guy, whoever he was. So I didn't know what that person's background was. And that's something that kind of, I'm just doing things randomly. Nothing really was planned ever. Even moving to Europe wasn't planned. I just kind of called my dad one day. I said, "Hey, I'm going to move to Germany." He's like, "When?" I'm like, "Next week." He's like, "Okay." Like, see you. Like, it was just like that. I had no plan, nothing like that. I just kind of did it, and I'm going to figure it out on the way there. So even as I'm telling you this now, I don't have a plan of where I'm going with this. I just just kind of went all over the place. But the main thing is to be curious. I wanted one summer I wanted to drive those big trucks that the moving companies drive. So I got a moving job just because I really wanted to drive that truck. I was really obsessed with, I wanted to drive that truck. So I got a moving company job. I was working as a valet, for like a year. Because I wanted to drive those cars. I worked in a restaurant. My boss then was so impressed with my work ethic, because one day I wanted to wash the dishes, but all I really wanted to do was use the machine that washed the dishes, because they didn't allow me to use it because the guy was there all the time. But I just wanted to wash. I wanted to use it. I wanted to see how it worked and how it washes it. I just wanted to spray, how sometimes you just want to spray something or use the water jet or use something like that. So I just was curious about that. I wanted to scrape the grill with that scraper. This is a huge scraper. And I was like, no, you can't go by the grill. I'm like, God, I really just want to use it. I'm curious about those things. So I was just always curious, and I still am today. So I think the main message from this long, kind of all over the place story is, I was curious. I never had a plan. I see something, I want to do it. I'm going to try it. If I fail, I fail. Then I try again. I failed a million times, and it doesn't really bother me that much. So I think that's the main thing. I was just curious about things, and I just wanted to try them.
Yeah, I think as a child, you tend to have that where you're just like whatever's flashy, you go to next, that sort of mentality. But I think it's actually important to the older you get, some people they try to become more calm and more like adult like, and they don't want to be curious and they don't want to be creative and all these different attributes. But I think actually keeping that mentality throughout your life can help benefit you in terms of like you're saying, your knowledge base now is growing drastically because each day you watch a few YouTube videos or you have one conversation with a specialist in a certain area, and you're constantly learning in all these different avenues. And I think that's key, especially as a manager or a head coach. Again, like I mentioned before, you sort of need to have that general knowledge base so that you can relate to each part of the different players you have on your roster, the different staff members behind the scenes. I think having that sort of general layout is huge. So it's really cool to see. I appreciate that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. And yeah, like you said, whatever it is, even as you grow older, now you're kind of, just kind of scared to move around or, oh, I can't take this, I can't go do this because it might be a step down, but I'm like, so I think it's just whatever it is, you have to just go and try, be curious, and you might fail, but then you learn something.
So let's move into the transitioning stage of becoming a coach. So what were your first coaching opportunities and then all the way until where you're at now?
Yeah, I wouldn't really call it coaching because I was just in Vancouver trying to get some extra money. So I would just do these camps. I was around real coaches who really took it seriously. I wasn't really taking it that seriously. I just wanted to, be at the camps and help out and do this and just make some extra money. Then after that, completely gave it up. Didn't really care that much. And then when I got here to Finland was the first time that I really started to get it. I was coaching like a very young, like I think they were 12 or 11-year-old 88 girls, and boys teams. So I had two teams at the same time, started coaching them. And then from there, I was starting to get a bit more interested at what is this process of, I was also around top coaches in the club and they were doing things at a high level. And I was just kind of, again, curious, what is it? What are they doing? And then from there, I kind of took over, and then I was promoted just because I think they saw that I was really interested in it. And, again, my work ethic, whatever I do, I want to do it 100%. So they saw my work ethic there. So I was the U18 head coach of the girls team. And then the year after that, I was a talent coach. A talent coach is basically hired by the FA, to go and work with the best young talents in that club. So basically, usually the role wasn't really defined to me. I kind of had to define my own role when I got there. So, doing extra trainings, making development plans, helping them with their schedule, things like that. And then in that talent coach role was for 2 years. At the same time, I was with the U19 national team, working on the staff there. So that taught me a lot, basically on work ethic, and especially with that staff where it's like nonstop. When you're with the national team, you don't have time to breathe really because you play a game. You gotta get the clips, you gotta analyze, you gotta prepare the next day, you gotta prepare the next training, you gotta do so many things to get ready for the next game because you can play 3 games in 10 days. So it's really nonstop for those 10 days. You can be maybe sleeping for not a lot of time during that time, but it taught me a lot. And then also within that talent coach role, I was a regional coach. So coach of the region. We were together with 3 other coaches taking care of the South region, which is the Helsinki and like Southern region, which is quite big. So we had to go and scout and try to pick players for mini camps. And then hopefully those players from the mini camps get up to the national team, and so on and so on. And then in the same role, I was that. And so for those 2 years, I did talent coach, national team, regional coach, and then assistant coach in the first league. So, I was working 70, 75, I don't know how many hours a week, basically just nonstop. But that experience taught me a lot because it's the same thing as when you're a football player and you want to train. You put in the work and then eventually you overdo it, you overwork, and then when you get into a head coaching role, it becomes a little bit easier because you've seen it. Okay, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. So it was really easy for me to go, okay, this is what I want from this coach, this coach, this coach, and then the planning. Even though my first year was horrible, the second, third year are going a lot more smoothly. So now the club saw that this is all within one club. So the club saw that they trusted me, just seeing my work ethic and seeing how I did in those past 2 years. And then they promoted me to head coach.
So now you're with, yeah, like you mentioned, you sort of been with FC Honka throughout your journey, but now you're the head coach with the first team. I wanted to get into kind of, I know many people listening are from the North American side of things, or even the UK, sort of our two bases. So they might not be familiar with the Finnish sort of federation, and then more specifically the women's side of things, and then FC Honka even more specifically. Can you get into the kind of how the federation works, how the women's side of football works in Finland?
Yeah. With the FA, basically my only role was as a regional coach. So I can only speak on the girls' side. I don't know so much about the boys' side because I know a little bit, but I don't know a lot. But I know how it is on the girls' side, and it's so well structured. I'm actually really, really impressed at how it's structured within the girls' side in the FA, how they do things. The coaches are fantastic. The national team coaches are fantastic. The regional coaches that they have are also fantastic. So what they're doing is really, really, really good. They have basically a U15 national team, U16, U17, U18, U19, U23, and then a step into the women's A team from there. The one thing I would like to see maybe is a step from an extra step from U19, U23, and then women. But of course, with finances and budget and everything like that, it's very, very tough. So the U23 team has a lot of age groups in that. So I think that's just one thing. And I would like to see maybe some qualifiers for those U23s, because all the other age groups have some qualifiers. But I hope that I think something might be coming from the U23 side. Yeah. And then of course there's regional coaches that take care of each region. And then, within working under those regional coaches are talent coaches that are placed inside the clubs. So basically there's a head regional coach from each region, and then each region has talent coaches who work inside those regions. So they can get a bigger scope of scouting the players and knowing the players from each age groups. And then from the regional, and then below that, those regional coaches are also looking at inside the district as well. So it's really well run. Of course, the one thing that they could do, but again, it's just, if they had more coaches, more resources, I think Finland could be one of the top countries. But of course, it's just about the resources and finances, what is given. But I think with what they have, again, just with what they have, they're doing such a great job there. And then in Honka and this league is growing all the time. It's a growing league. A lot of players now are moving from Finland into top leagues around the world. Hopefully one day the goal is to have maybe two Champions League spots here in this league, so that maybe two teams can qualify for the Champions League. At the moment, it's only the winner of the league that qualifies for not the group stage, but the prelims to go into the tournament phase. So I think it's a growing league. Now teams are kind of hopefully going to invest more money into the players, and that's just the main thing that they need to do, is invest more. And finances. I think that's basically the biggest thing. But if you look at it compared to what we have, again, really good players, really good national team players, really good youth national team players, really good youth players. What the coaches are doing inside the clubs as well, and the other clubs, they're doing a great job as well, building those players and making them into international caliber players. So, I think it's a small country, but they're doing good things.
Yeah, you're mentioning the financial side. FC Honka is one of the smaller clubs, I guess you could say, in terms of the European image for sure. How have you been able to kind of work with that and make an impact either way, even though the finances are a problem? But I think more on the team building side, you've been able to make improvements, I think club wide. How have you been able to do that over the years?
I think being a talent coach again helped me because I got to know the best young players, and we made a decision a few years ago that we're going to go with a much younger team. So we had a much younger team. A lot of them are still in university or high school, actually, a lot of them. So we have a young team. Um, the main thing, of course, we don't have the best financial situations like the other big clubs here in Finland, but what we do have, our facilities are probably some of the best, or I would say the best in Finland with what we have, the indoor facility, the gyms and everything, is the best. Our actual environment is really, really good inside the club. Our training times are really good as well. We train in the morning. We're one of the only teams now in the league, I think, who has, because in the winter we train indoors and most teams have to share or get a half field or they have to train at horrible hours because, everybody's training indoors. We train in the morning indoors, full field, nobody before us, nobody after us. So we get peace and quiet pretty much the entire week of training, which is very, very rare to do. We've also been able to bring in quality, motivated young players who have a goal, and that's the main thing. They have a goal to get to a top level. I'm very honest with them about what it is to be here with us. It's not always, it's not always fun because getting to the top level, there's it's a struggle and it's hard work. But I think that we have brought in players that enjoy that struggle and they want to struggle and they want to develop and they want to get better and they're there. They're complaining. They're complaining like everybody does. We're trying to limit the complaints. But it is hard work, but they're doing it together and that's the main thing.
You spoke a little bit about your licensing before, so I want to get into it because it's quite impressive your journey. Like you mentioned, 5-6 years you've been able to complete the licensing journey of a coach in UEFA. Can you speak on how you first got started with the licenses and now some of the new news or the recent news with your pro license?
Yeah, like I said, I was very lucky, like very, very, very lucky, because I didn't even know about the licenses. First of all, like I had one coach who came to one of our training and he was, an educator and he said, "Oh, have you done your licenses?" I'm like, what are those? I have no idea what those are. And then I just did my D license. And then with the D license, it takes like a couple days. You just go and do it. And then with the C license, I did it maybe 6 months after that because it was open. So I'm like, okay, let me just go register for this. I did my C license. And then maybe 6 months later or a year later, the B license opened up. So I did that right away. That took about, I think, 6 months or something or a year. And then, usually between B license and A license, you have to wait a year. But in that time, I got the talent coach role. And with the talent coach role, you have to have a UEFA A license or you have to be, in it or like registered in it.
Yeah.
So because I got that role, it helped me get into that A course right away, which I wasn't really supposed to because I think you had to like, I was maybe like a month early or something like that. I had to wait a whole year. I was maybe a month or something like that. So I probably could have gotten in, but I wouldn't have applied if I didn't know that I had to go into that A license with it. So yeah, without getting into that talent coach role, I probably wouldn't have applied for the A license because
Yes.
I thought I had to wait, like, I wasn't in any rush to do it. So I did. Well, now I have to do it because I have to go into that. I gotta be a talent coach. I have to have the A license. But then because then in those 2 years I worked and then the pro license opened up and I said, okay, let me apply for this. And because it works in a point system, basically. So because I was a talent coach working with the FA, I worked with the national team. I was an assistant coach with the first league. I was a regional coach. I was head coach for a few games in the league as well when the head coach was sick or absent. So all those gave me points really, really, really quickly in a short amount of time. And then from there, I was also a head coach of the first team at that time. So that gave me even more points. So again, because of the position that I was in, I was kind of pushed into that course and I got in. Luckily, I would say, just because of the past those past things that I've done.
How are the courses themselves? Are they actually informative, or are they more just a license to kind of push you into that next step in your career?
It depends how you take it. I think they were very, very informative. I think the B course gave me a lot of information of how to plan sessions. I didn't even know what session planning was. Like, I just thought, okay, well, you just come here and do a few rondos and go play. Like, I didn't know that then you can build sessions around this tactical periodization and blah, 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 blah. And then the A course was a bit longer. A course, you kind of go over everything football wise, tactically, technically, physically, mentally. So you go over everything, and it's a whole year, and you got to do a big project at the end. So I think that was the toughest one for me, just because it was a lot of work. Not saying that the pro course wasn't, but the pro course was, I loved how they did it because they knew that we were in season. They knew that they don't want to bug us with all these PowerPoints. So every time we get in, it was something that was useful to us. It was leadership courses. It was getting to know yourself, getting to know other cultures. Like we did a lot of trips to different clubs to see how they do things. We talked a lot. We had a lot of good coaches inside the group, so it was a lot of discussion. So I learned a lot from those coaches inside. We had media day. We had just things that are going to be useful for us. We had maybe a few tactical things, but it was just, when you get 10 head coaches in a room, we're not all going to agree on how this team should play and this team should play. So it was nice discussions. But in the end, I think we learned a lot from each other. It was my favorite time just to go there. I would go to that course again just to spend more time with those people, just because that's where you learn. I was also very young, so I just knew I had to ask questions from the very experienced ones, and they kind of, they were so nice about everything, and I still talk to a lot of them now still. So you build good connections there, and and then the final project was more a review of your whole year. So you take your whole year, what you've done. I basically had every single session that I've ever done. I have about, 500 PowerPoint slides of every single session that I've done, why I did it, video clips, all the scouting, just basically what you should be doing in a year is there. So that helped me find a process inside my year. So that was the biggest thing, that it really helped me. And then it also helped me make things more simple. As a first year head coach, I wanted to overcomplicate things. I wanted to show, oh, I'm so smart. I know everything. I know how to this tactical. I watch Pep. I watch this. I know all these tactical things. And then as I went through this process, now my game model was 180 pages of PowerPoint slides. Now it's just two. Now it's 2 pages. Super simple. This is what we want to do. Do this. Okay. If the other team knows what we're doing, do it better. Outperform them. We got to do it at a better level. So that was my process from that D course all the way till now.
You mentioned how young you were and you were able to learn from more experienced coaches. I believe you're one of the youngest to get the pro license, if not the youngest.
Canadian, yeah, I think so. I think youngest Canadian, youngest Algerian for sure. That I know. But Canadian, I'm not sure. There's not that much. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
who
hard.
else. Uh,
There's no leaderboard for it. But how does that feel to kind of get those licenses in an early age, and then being able to almost gain your experience with the license versus some other coaches might be working to get experience and then end up getting the licenses later on.
Everybody has their own way
Mm.
of doing it. It doesn't make me any better coach, to be honest with you. It doesn't mean that I'm suddenly, oh, now that I have this piece of paper that I'm a better coach than the person who doesn't have it and they've been coaching for 10, 15 years. Like I said, or 20 or however many years. It's just a process. It's just something that I went through to learn. I'm just here. I'm still learning. I'm not saying it's not for me. It's nice to have. It gives me the possibility to get higher level jobs, I would say, in the future. But it doesn't mean that I'm a good coach. I don't think I am, to be honest with you. I'm still learning. I'm going to make so many mistakes. I'm going to be, struggling a lot still. But I think it helped. The only thing that it really helped me with is now I can maybe deal with those better because I went through it and I've seen and I've talked to and I've had these experiences with those coaches because I've asked them what they went through and things like that. So the only thing maybe that I have an advantage of other coaches my age, would say that I can maybe deal with negative things or downfalls maybe a little bit better because in my first year, I didn't handle it that well. So
We're getting into. We mentioned before the recording that you're wrapping up preseason now. You're getting ready for the regular season. I always like to hear what does a day in the life look like for Omar, especially now getting ramped up, getting ready to go. What does a day in the life look like for you?
Um, yeah, it's day to day. I would say the most consistent thing is waking up, going to the office, having a coffee, looking at the training plan once more because we usually go over it the day before or after the game. We kind of plan the training, change anything if needed, check the players' readiness levels. Are they ready? If somebody needs to be adjusted at anything, then the players are in the gym at that time. So we speak with the staff, make any adjustments, make sure that everybody's clear on the rules for the training. We head out to training and then players come in, get the training done. And then we could have a video meeting probably before or after. It depends. Usually our videos go with Monday recap of the game. So in the morning before training, we just recap the game. Tuesday, either we have some scouting on the opponent for the upcoming week or some individual or line meetings. Thursday, more scouting, depending on if we do defensive or attacking work. And then Friday is just a pre-match meeting because I don't like having the pre-match meeting on the game day. For me, the week is for me and the coaches. The game day is for the players. I don't want to have such long meetings with them. And then after the training sessions, staff comes in. They have their own role. We sit down with the coaches, speak about the training, plan the next day, what we're going to do, what are their roles, and then whatever the staff has, they all have their own roles. If it's scouting, clipping the training, clipping the previous games, or doing individual clips. So that's just maybe in the first 6 hours of the day. But to be honest, after that, your day is never really done because we're always talking with the staff. We're always having phone calls or messaging or communicating about new ideas, what we can improve. And then that's just with the staff. Then on my own is a whole different thing. It doesn't stop. It's just always thinking about the tired. Okay, is this person okay? Is she going to be okay for this game? Okay, what's the lineup going to be for that game? Okay, this player seemed a little bit upset today. I wonder what's wrong. So it's never ending. So I can sometimes kind of lose I don't, I'm not there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's why I don't like vacation so much because on vacation, I'm always just thinking about, okay, what can we do? And that's when your best ideas come, is the vacation. Then you want to get back into it right away. So, it's tiring. Mentally, it's tiring. So you have to really enjoy the work. And for me, I love it. I love it.
And you mentioned you have quite a good strength at dealing with negativity and fallback. So one of the key questions that I ask each guest is, everyone's sort of gone through, especially in the footballing industry, it's a roller coaster ride. You constantly have these highs and lows of emotion. What was one of the biggest fallbacks that you had, or one of those biggest lows that you now are able to look back on, and you're able to kind of push forward with and use it as motivation?
Um, it's a tough question to answer, because every loss I took every loss very, very hard my first season. I think that was the biggest thing. But then as I get older now and just kind of start thinking about the goal, and also just thinking about life in general, people are going through much worse things that I'm not really, okay, you lose a game. Okay, what's the next one? So it's kind of like it's kind of like an ego thing. Yeah, losing was I had a hard time dealing with losing because I felt responsible for it. So what can I do? What can I do? What did I do wrong? What can I improve? And then the next year, my second year was more, what can we do? Now it's
Mhm.
we. Now it's as a team. Okay, we lost. Can we improve on the next game? That's fine. Okay, we won. Can we come back down here? Let's not stay up here. If we're on a high, we got to come back and refocus. If we're on a low, don't stay here. Let's come back and refocus. So I think that's the one thing that I learned after my first season, because I had no idea what I was doing that first year.
And then someone might be listening, and they see your journey. It's a unique journey for sure. And they might be inspired by it. They might be interested in working as a head coach, or working in the women's footballing side of things. Do you have advice for someone that wants to follow maybe a similar journey to what you've done?
Yeah, I mean, no, yes and no. That's also a tough question, but everybody's so different. What works for me, or what advice has worked for me, is not going to work for somebody else. For me, the one thing that has worked for me is, like I said before, is to be curious, try things, fail, don't stop. You're gonna fail a million times in everything. But when you're successful in something, it's gonna feel that much better. So be curious, try things, fail at them. You might be successful. Um, I've always been told, oh, don't give up, but sometimes you have to find something that you actually do want to do. I always wanted to run track, and okay, then I'm like, I don't want to anymore. I'm done with that. It was hard to give it up, but now I'm going into football. So it's the same thing with that. You might want to give up something, but just be curious. I think that's the main message from me. Try things, fail, try again, fail, try again.
And then we sort of mentioned about working through your career throughout all these years now. And if you look 5, 10 years back, you're in a totally different place, totally different environment. But now if we look 5 to 10 years in the future, first of all, do you have that sort of mindset where you look into the future? You're more just present thinking. And if you are future thinking, where do you think you'll be? Where do you think your career will be at? And maybe in your personal life as well.
Yeah, I'll actually send you a picture that I took 5 years ago. I sat down with he was my mentor then. He's a good friend now. He's the U19 head coach, fantastic, fantastic coach. We sat down together 5 or 6 years ago, and he told me, hey, write down your most crazy plan. He was my mentor then. He's like, in 5 years, what are your goals? Like, what is the craziest things you can think of at the moment? And at that moment, I was coaching, 12-year-old ATA. And I just wrote down the most craziest things. It was like, yeah, UA for B, UA for A, UA for Pro, knowing that it's impossible to get it. I wanted to be talent coach. I wanted to be head coach. I wanted a car because I was tired of busing. So I wanted those things. And then I found that piece of paper, like literally 5 years later, and I sent him a picture. I'm like, look, everything, bang, 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 bang. So the next goals are crazy. I'm not even going to say them. But ultimately, the one thing I want is I want to have some purpose every day.
Mm.
I need to be helping players. I need to be feeling some kind of competition every week. I need to compete. I need competition in my life, and I need to know that I'm working towards something that is testing me weekly. I can't just, okay, well, now it's time to just roll. I need something. I need some type of competition every week.
No, it's a great mentality to have. We'll wrap things up here with some quick fire questions. So first of all, your favorite club growing up, who was it?
Real Madrid.
Favorite quote or saying that you live by?
Um, I would say keep watering the bamboo. I think you can water bamboo tree for years and years and years, and it won't grow. And then suddenly in a few weeks, it's just like that. You won't see progress right away. But if you keep watering it, eventually it'll soar. So that's my favorite. Keep watering the bamboo.
And I loved your one, just be curious. I think that's almost
Yeah.
like the title of this episode is be curious. I like that a lot. Do you have some top recommendations for Finland, where you're located now? Do you have a top food spot someone has to visit, or obviously they have to visit a game of yours, but what are some of the other top places to go?
Honestly, Finland is such a beautiful, beautiful place, especially in the summertime, winter as well. But I would say in the summertime, you can visit pretty much any little island, take a little boat, go anywhere. Summer is amazing here in Finland. Food wise, it needs to step up the game because I'm from Vancouver. I'm from Vancouver, and the food in Vancouver is out of this world. So, but in terms of place, people, I love it here. It's home.
And do you read? Do you have a favorite book?
Yeah. Quiet Leadership by Carlo Ancelotti.
Oh, very good. Do you have some hobbies? So I know, like everyone in the footballing industry, it tends to be your only hobby and the only thing you do. But do you have anything else besides it to kind of get your mind off of it?
Yeah, I guess watching those YouTube videos,
Okay, yeah.
watching some guy build a snow shelter or something like that. I don't know.
And then the last one here, we used to have it just as one person, but you can choose multiple if it happens to be so. But if you could sit down with one person for dinner, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Both alive, my parents. I haven't seen them in a while.
No, that's a strong answer to finish things up here. Do you have any last words that you want to say to the audience, and then we'll wrap things up?
No, I mean, thank you for listening. I know it's I think the main thing is supporting. It's happening a lot now in Canada and all over the world, but supporting women's sports. Now it's happening more and more in Finland, which is great. We have a great team that we have now this year. We're looking to go for a championship. It's a big goal. So we want to, of course, we're playing to win. So, but yeah, support, go and watch games. If there's games in your area, if there's games, women's sports. Now, hopefully this new women's league is coming soon to Canada. So you'll have games to go and watch, but, there's the NWSL and in the USA, there's different teams, different leagues. So, go and watch.
Yeah, we'll make sure to include all of your club's social media below in the episode as well as your information. But thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate this time. It's good to always learn new things and get a new understanding from someone. So I appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking again soon.
Hey, thank you so much.